All right, so I want to go over some basic 3D and navigation. Now, I wish I could do these things separately, but they kind of go hand in hand. Um, Making 3D objects, being able to navigate them, and then modifying the UCS to pick the proper plane to draw and modify your objects, they really all go hand in hand. I wish I could do everything at once, but my entire video would probably be an hour and a half long, and you'd get bored out of your mind. So I'm going to do a short video, hopefully a short video, over basic 3D, basic navigation, and basic UCS description. And then I'll go further into how you can use those. Maybe I'll do individual videos on each one of those things and how to extract the most out of them. But you have to understand the foundation of 3D. So one of the first things you want to be able to do is switch into a 3D view. So navigation is how you're going to do that, 3D navigation. One of the ways you can do that is in your drawing area, you can choose preset views. Okay, when you click, your default will say top. When you click that top, you can choose if you want one of the preset orthogonal views, top, bottom, left, right, front, or back, as if you're looking at the sides of a cube. Or you can choose an isometric view, southwest isometric, southeast, northeast, and northwest isometric views. Then you have the view manager, which is where you can get to your preset views. That's a whole other beast in its own right. And then you can choose between parallel and perspective. And as I explained in my user interface setup video, you don't want to use perspective unless you have the machine that's able to use that. It's very taxing. So, how to get into 3D? One of the easiest ways to just hit something like Southwest Isometric. You can do that from here, or if you have your toolbars turned on, which is the 3D navigation toolbar, you can get to it from here as well, which I have a habit of using. If you have your ribbon, I believe if you go to view, is it views or is it views? I thought it was views. It might not be. View, no. Yeah, I like my views instead. I don't know if it's under annotate. Yeah, I like mine instead. I can't remember where the views are here. I thought you figure it would be in views. You can get to your view cube or your nav bar from here, and your nav bar will give you access to your orbit. Okay. Again, you can get to it through the ribbon or typing in or right clicking and going to typing in nav bar in your command line. You can also get to some of those from here. Your orbit, constrained orbit is the one you're probably going to want to use. I actually have, because I have the 3D navigation bar, I have pan, 3D zoom, constrained orbit, a swivel, and a walk. It's a lot of the same stuff that's here. And if you happen to use the nav bar, you can just click that orbit and orbit right there. I'm left clicking, by the way, or you can click it from here and get to it like that. When you're inside of a 3D navigation mode, you can right click and get extra options, like to your visual styles, your preset views, and things of that nature. Okay, or you can just right click to exit or enter or escape, however you want to do it. You'll notice that the UCS changes. All right, the UCS icon will change to let you know that you're in 3D, because you're no longer looking at this thing from a top view. You're looking at it from an isometric view. You'll also notice that when I orbit, and by the way, a quick orbit is shift and middle click. It will allow you to orbit around without having to hit your orbit command. You can just shift and right click. You'll notice that the colors change of the UCS and it thickens up. That's because when you go into a 3D visual style like wireframe or hidden or realistic, the UCS icon changes. In 2D wireframe, it will stay as the regular white thin line UCS. Okay, so that's your navigation in a nutshell. Most of the time you're going to be using your orbit, and you can pan around just like you normally would, middle mouse button to pan around, and just dragging to orbit around. There are other navigation modes. I'm not going to go into those right now because I'm not doing advanced navigation. So orbit is the one you're going to use most of the time. Moving on past your navigation, let's move into 3D objects. One of the easiest things to do that a lot of people do is extrusions. Now you can create like straight 3D objects. If you go into like draw and then go into modeling, you can choose shapes like a box. Very easy. If you have the toolbar, the 3D modeling toolbar, it is solids modeling or solid. Where are we at? I have solid editing. Oh, where's my solid bar? I don't even bother having it open because I never really need to use it. Solid editing, surface creation, surface editing. Surfaces is a whole other beast, and I'm not going to get into surfaces right now. So I'm not going to worry about trying to find this thing. It'll take me too damn long to try to find out where the freaking I thought solid creation would be here, but it's not. Usually, I thought it was like solids 1 or something like that, but it looks like it's gone or something. So yeah. All right. But you can get to them from here, or you can just type them in. So all of these draw, modeling, you can type in box, wedge, cones, like straight up type them all out. Okay. You can make 3D shapes like that, or you can do extrusions. Extrusion is taking a 3D polyline, sorry, a 2D polyline like a rectangle, and you type in extrusion or EXT. Select your object or objects if you have multiple. Right click or enter and choose your height. You can specify a height, or you can just pick a height. There are other options such as a taper angle, the direction, a path. You can choose a path if you want to. Like let's say I have a line right here and I want to extrude. I can choose the path option and select that line, and it will extrude along that line. Keep in mind that line now becomes part of that object, and the grip for the extrusion path is now at the end here instead of in the center. If I do a standard extrusion, the grip is in the center for the height. Okay. With extrusions, you can modify the extrusion after the fact. You can change the size. Okay. And you can change the extrusion height. In the properties menu, however, the only thing you have access to is the extrusion height and the taper angle. You cannot modify the dimensions of this box. However, if you use the box command, you do have access to the length, the width, and the height. Length, width, height, and it will change these all dynamically. Okay? And this can be instead of just going up, this can be dragged up or dragged down. All right. You can do the same thing with circles by extruding them into cylinders. Okay? And you'll notice that the lines look kind of funny. There's a setting that controls that. In fact, I'll go ahead and give you those settings right now to control those lines. One of the first setting you're going to want to enable is the display silhouette command. It's DISPSILH, and you set that to 1, and what it does, and then regenerate afterwards by typing in RE or regen, either one. You'll see lines on the outside because it's displaying the silhouette edges of this cylinder. The next thing is the ISO lines. That's these 4 lines right here. If you set your ISO lines to 0 and then regen, those ISO lines go away, and we have a more classic looking cylinder now. And that's what you're going to see in a lot of places. Display silhouette turned to 1 and ISO lines turned to 0. If you turn your ISO lines to 0 and leave your display silhouette turned off, you're just going to get circles. Keep that in mind, okay? All right. So we can extrude any polyline we want, not just rectangles and circles, which are not polylines technically, but we can do any other shape. If we have something that's got a bunch of crazy stuff on it, we can extrude that. Okay, that's what the extrude command does. It extrudes in a direction. Okay, that's what you're going to use for a lot of things. But if you want to do more than that, you can do things like so we know how we did the circle and we extruded it into a cylinder, right? Again, grip in the center. All we have is control over the height. Okay, but if we use a cylinder command by CYL or cylinder, we now can drag in both directions, and we also have grips at the bottom which allow us to change in the properties the radius and the height, not just the height. You can also choose elliptical. I wouldn't, but you could if you really wanted to. Maybe you're making an airplane. I don't know. Not my thing. All right. So cylinders have more options than just extruded circles. But for a lot of people, having like a bunch of circles and just extruding them is really fast. So pick your poison. All right. We can extrude polylines. We can extrude circles. We can make preset shapes, circles, boxes, spheres, which, because our ISO lines are turned off, it just looks like a circle. With ISO lines turned on, you see more of what you would expect to see in like a 3D mesh circle or something like that. So keep that in mind. Okay. Majority of what I use in my particular industry, again, structural design, is cylinders and boxes and extruded profiles. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. That's navigation and that's modeling. And lastly is UCS. Quick description of UCS. It is the user coordinate system. It shows your relative location in the world. Okay. The default is the world coordinate system, the WCS. So when you type in UCS, you have the world, or you can choose your own UCS. I can place this. This is now the user defined UCS. This is not the world UCS. If I type in UCS and just hit enter to go to world, it puts it there. So say I draw a line at 0, 0, 0. Okay. There's my line. And I type in UCS and I go place my UCS over here. This line used to be at 0, 0, 0 at the start point. Now when I do an ID on this, it's no longer 0, 0, because what it's doing is it's giving me a coordinate relative to where I placed my UCS. Now I can type in UCS and place a new give it a new location, or I can just select the UCS and drag it myself manually. I can also choose to rotate these axes manually. Okay, so I'm going to start here. It's important to understand that you can modify the UCS, because what happens is you can also change the direction of the UCS on one of the orthogonal views. So this is a top view. The world UCS is also the top view. I can change that to a front view, or I can change it to a left view. This is easily discernible if I have like a cube. Let's say I come from 0, 0, 0, make a cube of 6 on 6, and I go there and up 6. You can see that this is it's looking down the top, even though it's set at the bottom. It's looking on the top, right? It's as if I were to do this. Turn the ortho back on, and there it is lined up with the top of this. If I do UCS front, it's as if it were lined up to the front of this box. If I do UCS left, it's like it's aligned to the left side. Same thing with back. UCS right, as if it were 6 and 6. There's the right UCS, and then you have bottom. So it's I'm going to put it back to world. It's the orthogonal UCSs. And what happens is when you set your view to one of the orthogonal views, like top, bottom, front, back, whatever, it's going to set the UCS automatically. So if I go to the front view and then I orbit around, you can see that y-axis pointing up, because now my UCS is set to the front because I chose a front view. If I set it back to the world view, it'll go back to top. Okay, UCS is important when drawing things, because when your UCS is set to like front, for example, your P lines will change the way that they're being drawn. My circles are now being drawn on a front view as opposed to a top view. You can see the orientation of these things. It also changes the way things are extruded, because I drew this in a front view and I go to extrude this. Notice how my UCS changed, because I drew this circle when it was in a front view. So it's extruding front to back. Whereas, whereas this one is going to extrude top to bottom. Okay? So, that's the basis of the UCS. Being able to draw in different axes. You can make custom UCSs, you can rotate your UCSs, and I'll get full-fledged into that later on. But that's the basis of UCSs and drawing between them. In the previous video, we talked about point filters. Keep in mind that when you change your UCS, your point filters change with it. If I draw a line and I say, oh, I want this line, and I say I want it to do a point Z to the top of this, it matches, right? It matches there. But what happens is if I change my UCS to the front, what used to be the Z-axis is now the Y-axis. If I want to draw that same line with my UCS set to the front, I now need to say .y to here at. Because my Z-axis now runs front to back rather than top to bottom. My Y-axis now runs top to bottom. So keep in mind what your UCS says. If your UCS goes missing, most likely your UCS icon has been turned off. I like to keep my UCS icon turned on. So make sure you turn it on. When you go to UCS icon, if you type in no, as in no origin, what it does is it will persistently keep your UCS icon in the corner, but you will not know where your origin point is. I like to be able to see where my origin point is in my model, so I like to keep my UCS origin on, so I say UCS icon or, and it turns my UCS icon back on and puts it at the origin. And that's basic 3D modeling in a nutshell. There are some more advanced features like unioning, intersections, separating objects, impressions, 3D chamfers and fillets, extending faces, a lot of other options that I can get into. That's the basis of 3D modeling and navigation.